What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Bingetown TV and our coverage of Disney Plus's Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Very quick shout before we get started here. If you're listening on our Percy Jackson and the Olympians specific feed, just routing you towards the Bingetown TV main feed. That's just our home feed, you could say. Bingetown TV is much more than just Percy Jackson and the Olympians. We cover a whole plethora of shows. We just finished Reacher. We're covering Solo Leveling. Masters of the Air comes out on Apple TV soon. True Detective on HBO. So we got a lot of hands and a lot of cookie jars. So if you're liking our Percy Jackson coverage, I'm sure you'll like our coverage of some other shows that you're probably watching. Okay, so this is episode 7. We find out the truth, sort of, and perfectly named. We do find out the truth, sort of, here. I thought this was a drastic's maybe tough, an improvement on episode 6, and I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I think this was really fun. I'm not gonna say we're back because
Yeah,
that feeling's kind of been gone for a while, but I definitely think I had fun watching this episode. I'm happy that we're gearing up for that finale, and it's gonna be even better on a rewatch because you'll be able to click play right into the finale, and the hypeness and like how it was building up towards the end was, I didn't think they were gonna put it. I thought that was gonna be like all part of the finale, but the fact that they like kind of used it to gear us up for episode 8, I was already like just hyped to see Ares again. But the fact that he's got a sword ready, like, and Percy rips out Riptide, like the ending was really good for me. Hades, I could talk about for a while, but I'll save some of those thoughts. I love Hades, just like the character in the Greek mythos, and I thought that this was like a unique spin on him because Hades is always portrayed as just pure evil, pretty. You can put a box, like he's pretty standard Hades, I would say, for the majority of the time. Like Hades from Hercules, like the Disney
yeah,
stuff. Like anytime Hades is involved, he's always just the devil. But that wasn't the case here, and I was really looking forward to their portrayal, and I was pretty happy with it. Even though, again, not a lot of screen time, but that's just the nature of the show.
yeah, yeah. I think this was a very successful penultimate episode, and
Yeah.
like you said, it's the ending was really fantastic. It was borderline, I don't want to say epic, but like it's really setting the scene. The music was well done. The scene with Poseidon
hmm
saying like I'll be biased, like all that stuff was working really well together after like meeting Hades and everything. So I was like, okay, fuck yeah, I can't wait to
And
watch
this
the
is
finale.
exactly what I envisioned in my head when I remember reading the books. And then they just completely cut all this for the movie, which made everybody
Yeah.
pissed. But I'm happy we're
Yeah.
finally here a decade after.
Yeah, Rick finally got his revenge. So speaking of kind of the ending, Poseidon, etc., we're just gonna cover the flashbacks first. They're obviously interlaced, interwoven throughout the entire episode. It's just easier for us to cover them kind of in one conversation.
hmm
Heartbreaking, just tough. Obviously, we know that Sally, Percy's mom, loves him and is trying her best to balance this, doing what's best for him, but also not really exposing him so much to the world she's trying to protect him from. So I can't even imagine how hard it was for her. Percy obviously struggled in his own right with it. It was just kind of intense.
I gotta say, because I don't know Walker from other things, he was in that the Ryan Reynolds Adam
Mhm.
something. I've seen it. I don't even remember what the movie was. But that was like the first time I ever saw him. This is really me getting to know the actor. And I just this kid is him to me. Like they're
Yeah,
just so similar looking. I need to like see them side by side to remember that it's not like a younger version of him. And it's
looks a
probably just the
lot
hair
like
and
him.
just it really, really does. So I like when we get to see him. But this was sad. Like Percy doesn't know what he's doing. He's guilt tripping Sally and she's feeling
Yeah.
awful about it. And we'll save that fourth, like final confrontation that I'm sure we're dying to talk about. I just had a question for you. Was this the scene that Hermes showed Percy when he touched him and was like saying, Lawson of all about that? Like, because
Ooh,
it seemed like he was in the car on the same side when he
yeah.
flashed over to Percy, but I don't even know how that connects to Hermes theming or message that he was trying to get across. I just think this is what it was a flash to, unless I remember it wrong.
I think it speaks to the theme of almost wanting to be involved, wanting to do more, but knowing that you can't. Like you obviously still love your mom, and she did those things to you. Like I had to do almost the same thing with Luke, and he hates me. I don't know necessarily why Hermes is trying to. I don't want to say prove himself to Percy, but it does seem almost kind of what he's doing, which is interesting. I guess we'll get more of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just something I connected when I saw it because it looked similar to the shot that Hermie showed us. But either way, the more important piece is we finally get to see Poseidon also in the same episodes that we meet Hades. So we basically get two-thirds of the big three of the Greek gods. And I am super happy I didn't know the casting for anybody, and this might not even mean anything to you, but I love this actor. The only other thing I know him from one thing, and only me and Alki have ever seen it. And it's the Lost in Space Netflix remake that has like 3 seasons, completed project. It finished a couple years ago. And do you know the Robins? It's like the Robinsons, like it's like from the I want to say like 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s. It was like a show back then that was like super popular, sci-fi, goofy, and then Netflix remade it in modern day, and it's like more about like the space drama and like actually dramatic and shit. And this is the dad of the family, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but he's like a good actor. I really enjoy him. He can bring the seriousness whenever it's needed, but at the same time, in the Lost in Space show, he's like a very like caring father, cares about his kids. So I think a lot of that's gonna show in his interactions with Percy. So I'm excited to see it. And I mean, it's just a me moment where I'm like, hell yeah, I love that guy. I know see, looking at your
Yeah.
face, I know you don't know him. And you might know him. There's a couple of other things he's been in, like he's been in a couple episodes of The Walking Dead, some random things, but he was in a show of like a guilty pleasure show of mine, is why I got excited to see him.
Yeah, did not recognize him, but I like his
Hmm.
voice a lot. I
Yeah.
feel like he carries a lot of power in his voice, which you would assume Poseidon would. Just makes me even more interested potentially of who Zeus is going to be. I
Hmm.
don't know if that casting, I'm sure it was maybe announced and we probably missed it. Don't really mind a spoiler on it, but I'm curious to see who that is because that is like, that's a crazy role to get.
Hard to follow Ned Stark too,
Yeah,
because
true.
that's what
That
I'm picturing in my
voice.
head.
Yeah, I want that voice to be booming and banging.
Yeah. But let me bring up how this happens because I could have missed something here as well. But it seemed like Sally called Poseidon there. Like she lit the match, she put it in the thing, and the rain started right away. Did I miss why that works? Because I thought this was going to go back to what we learned at Camp Half Blood when you burn something that you care about and you can actually like pray to the gods. That didn't seem to like connect. All she did was light a match and turn it upside down and put it in a cup and it called him. Maybe it's something we'll learn later, or maybe I'm an idiot, but just nothing there.
Yeah,
Why
only
did
thing
that
I can
work?
think of is only thing I can think of is it's a like a two of them thing.
Yeah, so something we would
You know?
have to see in a flashback later.
Yeah,
That works,
that
I
would be my
guess.
guess.
Yeah.
That would be my guess for sure. But yeah, I just what's going on this scene too, or rather, kind of at the same time, is the climax of the episode. So
Hmm.
the music is swelling, and Poseidon is it's it's interesting because at some level, at some perspective, he's kind of a deadbeat dad, but he's also, I think, very understanding of Sally's struggle. She doesn't want to send him to camp. He's perfectly fine with her being honest that she doesn't want him to interact with his family, him being Poseidon, because she doesn't want that influence on him. He's better than that, and all of that kind of stuff. And then we get the line where Poseidon essentially says, whenever he chooses his path, like I'll be right there, beside him, and beside him, Poseidon, and
Mm, heard that too.
that just was like, yeah, that just fit perfectly with like right into the face off with him and Ares, and that was just like a really exciting hype way to end the episode.
Yeah, when I watch the finale, I'm gonna go back and watch that scene and then click play on the finale just to build it
Same.
up a little bit because, like, I was amped, like I was ready to go. The model Ares sword was sick, but while Poseidon was being awesome, I want to say something that came up in this conversation is Sally asked Poseidon, like, do you want to see Percy? And I don't know if you caught this, but as soon as like it pans back to him to get his answer, you hear the thunder in the background and I took it as like Zeus is like, that's the rule. No, like we don't do
Whoa.
this. And I mean, I don't know. I could be reading into it, but it's also kind of poetic if they did that on purpose because that was the rule that was established because of Poseidon and Percy's relationship. No more of the big three gods having kids. You can't have these relationships. So that was like a subtle reminder, and I hope that's what that was or what the showrunners were aiming for.
Yeah, that feels intentional. That's too on the nose.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to transition away from the flashback and we're going to flash back to the start of the episode, which is Krusty's Waterbed Emporium. Just a quick scene. We just interesting to note essentially that this Percy's first time meeting a sibling. His half brother, Krusty, is what he wants to be called, essentially guards this back door to the underworld and kills travelers with waterbeds. Not really a ton going on here, besides there's really no brotherly love. They
Hmm.
Annabeth kind of traps him, and he's just trying to maybe warn them about going to the underworld. They don't really care. The three of them head down the steps into what is the underworld. I don't know if you have any comment on that.
I mean, I looked it up, just any wiki, and there's actually almost nothing out there on him, meaning he is a very side character in the Greek mythos. He was in the I think he might have been mentioned in the Odyssey or something. He was in something big, but like he's also his like wiki page is so small. The only thing you could really get from it is like Poseidon is his dad. So I mean, I guess they did what they needed to do. There's like beds that are named after Krusty or Procrustes, whatever his name is. There's just like a style of bed. I don't know, not too
Interesting.
important, but I wanted to just say that these type of moments, while they're so small, are the reason I love the source material of Percy Jackson, because this is the definition of a modern spin on like a Greek anything. And while it's not that important, he's just the guardian of a secret part of the underworld. It's just cool that they turn him into like a bed salesman. That's when I love Percy. And, it kind of goes to like Medusa being in the garden. Like I love those modernized versions of what would Greeks be like today. So it's just nice to get reminded every once in a while, because once you go to the underworld, all those things go away because we're actually in the Greek world. But I like the combination of the
Yep.
modern world with the Greeks. But yes, I'm ready to move to the underworld, which I thought it looked sick. The initial vibe I got was almost like the Great Wall. Is it even called the Great? What? Just the wall in Game of Thrones, but like black. It was like it
Fair.
kind of gave me those vibes. Like instead of snow, it was just like this dark, omnipresent, ominous presence, and it was just yeah. I mean, I don't know what I expected, but it looked good.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it looked good too. And I thought that they did a good job in the beginning of it and this is so tough. If it's not Chiron,
It's with an
it's
A, Charon.
yeah, it's with an A. And I'm almost like stuttering over how to swap out the I for the A. But you get what we're
Hmm.
talking about.
Hmm.
And I thought it was just funny. Again, they're in the underworld, but Percy Jackson is this series that injects humor in good ways. And then skipping the line was just funny.
Yeah.
It literally brought us from holy shit, the underworld, this is crazy, into like, okay, now we're kind of light moment, into they have the funny interaction with him, into okay, now we're running away from Cerberus. So like this I thought was kind of quintessential Percy Jackson of like switching back and forth between like this serious quest that we're on that's dangerous into Percy/Walker being funny into oh my god there's danger, let's run away, and teamwork
Hmm.
and type of stuff. So I thought all of this, like we enter the underworld up until we get over the wall to the other side stuff, it all worked for me. The Annabeth thing with the dog with the scratching was kind of whatever, but I feel like it fits her character. So
I, So maybe I guess a complaint is I just felt that Cerberus was too easy to deal with. And maybe this is what happens in the book. I don't really remember at all, but
that's fair.
I don't know. It felt a little weak how easily they dealt with Cerberus. But for Charon, I actually brought that up. I don't know if you remember on the first podcast, because I always mix up Chiron and Charon because I can never keep it straight up which one's which. He seems cool, but again, we didn't get a lot of time. Not that the boatman who takes souls across the river Styx is supposed to get a lot of screen time. They're supposed to be even mute in some iterations of Greek mythology. So all that was fine. It's just I thought, I don't know, Annabeth scratching Cerberus was enough to stop the guardian of the underworld. Like I don't know, and he looked good. I mean, he did look like Fluffy from Harry Potter, Sorcerer's Stone. Like it looked exactly like what I wanted it to. It just felt that a little ear scratch, and then a ball is all you need to get rid of Cerberus. When they say like all these demigods, they go down and then never come back. Like Cerberus was supposed to be a huge part of that, but I don't. He doesn't seem threatening. Like Grover got eaten by him, and it was totally fine.
Yeah, I guess I can see both ways. Of one, it's like the reputation that gets out there is different than the fact that it's literally he's a dog, so he acts like a
True.
dog type of thing. And there's a gag aspect of the stress ball that she gives Grover before they get down there because he's almost hyperventilating into actually it playing a role in them escaping. So I was okay with it. I honestly had to rewatch it twice to be like, okay, I need to like know exactly what's happening here. Like
Hmm.
her being on him when he jumps and then her grabbing the wall because I was like, I watched it and was like, what the fuck just happened? So I went back and rewatched it. But I thought that the next scenes were good enough that I just kind of stopped thinking about it.
I felt the same. Like it wasn't something I really cared that much about. I figured I'd bring it up because it would be dishonest for me not to say that that was the only, like a big complaint for me. But once they do get on top of the wall, and I'm happy that they used Maya again, the flying shoes. I don't know if that's the name of the shoes or just the password, but I'm gonna call them Maya for now, for this episode. And when they get up there and look over to the other side of the underworld, I love the upside down looking castle. It was giving me fillery
Magicians.
magician. Yes, it
Yeah,
was
straight
giving me
magicians
vibes,
vibes.
and I was happy. It looked fucking sick, and
Yeah.
just like looking out with it being above a desert is always epic too. It just kind of adds to the mythos of the place and makes it scarier. So all of that looked cool, and then they get ready to set off. But we also have to talk about, I guess, just real quick. Grover lost the pearl inside of
Yeah.
Cerberus too, which I
Classic.
said, LOL, Kyle, because you were like trying not to be condescending to the writers, but you're like, this is just gonna happen, and you were dead on.
Yeah. Well, it was more trying not to be condescending to people that were like shocked and like upset by it and all that kind of stuff. Because it was like, it's not like they were just going to have four pearls skip to Hades Palace and all four of them are going to leave. Like there was
Right.
obviously going to be some trials and tribulations. They were going to
Hmm.
lose a pearl to get back to the original three. So I don't know. It is what it is. It worked well. I thought the service, I guess you could say, explanation or reasoning fit well for the underworld. Feels like it's and still kind of an up in the air thing where there's a pearl inside of Cerberus. Will that come back? Who knows? But they've obviously left the underworld at this point.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we move then from this three-headed dog challenge into what becomes a forest challenge. Just very quick, we learn a little bit of world building here that the souls in this forest are souls that are kind of trapped there by regret. Just leads us to a very interesting scene where Annabeth herself is stuck in the forest. Grover, I like this two parts. Grover has two scenes right here that are just like pure logic. Where at the start he's like, it's literally math. Like we have three beads, pearls. There's four of us. Like we need to figure this out.
Hmm.
And then here he's like, well, it's got to be some type of regret, right? And Percy and Annabeth have very interesting eye contact, but they give her one of the pearls and she kind of gets out of it. But I'm curious of what you were thinking that this meant.
Regret wise,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna connect back to Luke and Talia. There's gonna be something there. Maybe there was a chance for Annabeth to be the one that stayed behind instead of Talia. Like that's what I'm thinking, but I don't I don't think it's gonna be anything to do with Athena because I don't think she's let on that there's been any conversations she had where she like spited her mother or something and now they have a bad relationship. I don't think anything like that. I think it has to be
Yeah.
connected to her backstory with Luke and Talia.
I almost asked that as a setup to bring up comments from the Discord. So Meryl, the legend, was asking about Annabeth's hat and if it's similar or not to Hades' helmet. And she also had this theory that Annabeth maybe stole the bolt and is working with Luke because they have that shared history. So like that's why she's stuck because she's like sorry and regretful that she is like working with Luke and is eventually going to betray Percy and Grover. So just an interesting aspect. I like that they're having people think these different ways. We know
Mm-hmm.
technically still, not that they've brought it up in a while, but eventually Percy will be betrayed on this quest, essentially, although they didn't necessarily confirm it's on the quest. So that what reading her have those comments, I was like, okay, they're like the what's the right way to say it? The vibe almost of the book felt really real in this episode,
Yeah,
where like the
I can see
dangers
that.
of the quest, all of that kind of stuff was coming out well. So for this scene
Like,
especially, because I remember watching it and being like, why the hell is she stuck? Like what? It felt like for me, I was reading like sexual tension, like she's regretful that she hasn't told Percy that
oh
she
my
loves some
God, could
type of
you
deal. But
imagine?
we will obviously find out. But maybe that's me being too much on Stan slash whatever what do they want to call it, Twitter, ship Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be with her backstory. But before we can move on like further into her Annabeth leaving, I just want to bring up what I did read real quick on Asphodel. Think it's what it's called. Asphodel, the realm, the it's one of the main three portions of the underworld, and the only thing that the wiki gave me that's worth bringing up, I guess, the three main parts. There's basically like you could think of it as like a heaven, a hell, and a purgatory kind of thing, where this is the spot that they're in now is where the majority of souls go because humans don't lose attachments. They kind of have this regret, and most of them settle into this plane of existence in the underworld. Then there's the one for like the heroes that get rewarded in their afterlife, and then there's the one Tartarus, which is just where you get tortured for all of eternity. So this is like the majority of human souls end up in this path. I'm not saying they all get stuck and become trees. I don't really know how deep that lore goes, but this is like 90% of human population when they die, they end up somewhere in this part that they're walking through now.
Yeah, that's honestly really interesting. And I know a complaint of the series has been that it's very exposition heavy
Hmm.
and that they kind of just outwardly explain things. But I think it would have been cool to have that type of information.
Yeah, and
They obviously talk about it, but
I'm someone that loves Greek mythology, and that's not even like a common fact that I remembered at the forefront of my, brain. Like I didn't even, like I doubt the majority of people know that. So that would have been a better thing to expand upon a little bit. But who knows? The underworld's such a key setting in Greek world. So maybe we'll be back. We'll hear Hades' explanation. I don't know. Something. There's room to grow for the underworld. You know.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So the next step here is going to be Tartarus. So we have Percy and Grover are alone at this point. They're walking. The shoes, Maya, are basically dragging Grover down into Tartarus. Percy uses Riptide, quick thinking, and saves him. Again, bring this up just in the sense that Meryl was talking and said that just realizing that those shoes maybe weren't actually a gift, they were part of a bigger plan here because the shoes obviously were being drawn towards something. So uh, it seems obviously they were meant for Percy.
Hmm.
They were on Grover's feet. Not that that's a huge deal in the moment because they both are saved and everything, but just more things to think about. All these kind of threads are finding their way back into each other for our finale, which is kind of what you want out of a penultimate episode.
Yeah, and I am so dumb for now realizing right away that that was Tartarus. I love Tartarus. Like the idea of it, it's such a cool layer to the underworld. And now in hindsight, when it's like Cronus is maybe pulling it toward whatever the explanation actually is, it's just badass. I love the idea of Tartarus being right there under Hades' palace, just always like is like the number one place you put the worst of the worst. So I'm for sure guaranteeing that this is going to come back into play, especially with all the Percy realizations in the throne room about Cronus. So I'll leave it at that. But I was so dumb for not realizing. Did you catch that right away? We were like, that's Tartarus.
No, oh no.
Okay, cool, cool. I feel
I
less
was like,
bad then.
interesting. Big hole in the underworld.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that?
Should have been obvious,
But
but I was like, what the fuck is
yeah.
that?
Well, speaking of should have been obvious and maybe more of a cognitive dissonance, not really wanting to admit it thing is we find out also in this scene that Percy has the Master Vault. It's in the bag.
Right.
That and they just have the kind of back and forth of like, it's not, it couldn't be, is it?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
type of conversation. They quickly deduce, thankfully, that Ares actually gave Percy the bag. So they know at this point that Ares had the bolt at one point to be able to give it to Percy. So they're kind of now realizing that Ares, they had Clarice obviously pegged as the lightning thief and thought maybe Ares was protecting her, but now they're
Hmm.
realizing that Ares has more of an active role in whatever the fuck is going on type of deal here. So just an important thing to call out.
Yeah, I don't want to comment too much on it because that's going to be a better conversation next episode. But
Mm.
this is something me and you talked about in the spoiler section 2 podcasts ago. Like it was going to end up being an Aries thing. So I'm happy. Like just the idea of Edge again just makes me happy. I'm just like, fuck yeah, let's go. Let's see
Yeah.
Edge. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically the idea that Clarice and Ares are kind of involved is their main theory at this point, Grover and Percy. Jeez, I almost forgot Percy's name. So
Hmm.
that kind of this is the knowledge now they're bringing to Hades and his, I guess we'll just say throne room. I'm not sure if his palace or castle has a name. I'm sure it does. I feel like they named everything, but he was interesting.
Dude, I love it. I already said a lot of the reasonings at the top. I love when they trope break for Hades because Percy Jackson's version of Hades is so much different than the majority. And I just think it's funny. He was just saying, I seldom cahoot. Like he's just saying all these random
Yeah.
things, but he does still look like if you were to show me what he looked like with no background and said, "What god is this?" I would have been like Hades. You could tell because of the hair, like his style, the eyebrows, all
Yeah, his
that. So he is
eyebrows.
still the essence of Hades, but he's just not pure evil. And in most of the Greek, like original Greek stuff, Hades isn't supposed to be evil. It's just all the modern takes and modern stories that he is because you just associate him with like the devil, like Christian, whatever you want to
Yeah.
say. It's easy. He's an easy target, but he's not supposed to be this spiteful, hateful brother of Zeus and Poseidon that hates them for having been stuck down there. He's supposed to just be like a Greek god that does his duty, and like of course he'll fuck with mortals and have wives and cheat and everything like everybody, but this is the Hades that I was really excited to see. I wish we got a little bit more, but it's funny that his initial ask was, "Yep, like thanks, you're here. I saved your mom from the Minotaur." That's like that was like a good for me. Most people die, so you're here. Let's make the trade. Give me, and then he says, "My helm of darkness," which was supposed to be like the big. What the fuck are you talking about? Has there? I initially was thinking that it was the cap that Annabeth had, but I don't remember any other mention of the Helm of Darkness. Maybe it was just all. Maybe this is the reveal. Is that what it's supposed to be?
That's the way I took it.
Yeah.
I'm so the Helm of Darkness and Annabeth's cap are two separate things,
Okay.
unless they're combining them, which I don't think they are, because it
Mm-mm.
seemed very deliberate that Athena is giving Annabeth this hat
Right.
as a gift. I don't know if she would set her up like that, or maybe it's a test. Actually, now that I'm saying that out loud, but no, I don't believe that they're the same thing. Even looking it up, the Helm of Darkness, just to be able to talk on some differences. It seems the Helm of Darkness isn't just invisibility, it's a lot of like slipping into shadows, going through walls. It can
Okay.
like radiate fear and things like
Oh,
that. So
that's
if
awesome.
yeah, if they're doing those aspects of it, then I don't think that Annabeth's hat qualifies. That was a question too that Meryl had of if
It
it's the same thing. So I think they'll clear that up in the next episode.
I think they will too
Be
because
my guess.
Percy accepts the side quest to go get it in exchange for his mom's life, and that's all fine. I guess I guess it's better to think about it. I don't know how much they're going to lean into this idea, but if each of the gods like has a very important weapon or tool that's associated with them, like the Master Bolt for Zeus, like this could
Yeah,
be
the
Hades'
Trident.
version of like whatever. Yeah, exactly. Like the Trident for Poseidon, this could be Hades' version of his weapon because I don't really think he's known for having anything like weapon wise, maybe like a two-pronged trident thing like that. I don't know. Either way, this is it's most likely different than Annabeth's cap, which it needs to be. It's more interesting this way. But I do like how Percy kind of swindled him into that deal because I think like at some level, gods are bound to these deals that they make with mortals and demigods. So I'm sure he'll honor it if Percy gives him the item in exchange for his mom's life. Who's did he say was she just frozen in gold or something like that? Like, did he mention what that was?
They finally did not comment. It's just that she's alive.
Yeah, okay. So she's just like frozen in place. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. To speak more too on your actually to combine those two thoughts of each god has its own weapon and Hades is supposed to be more of like a dutiful god, he kind of flips that switch from jolly ish, kind of zany, sarcastic into like serious, like, no kid, like if we're gonna go to war, Zeus needs his bolt, Hades needs his helm of darkness. Poseidon doesn't get a mention, but obviously he's considered to be one of the big three there, so he'll need his trident type of deal. So I like that Hades, like you're saying too, has this like it's immediate. They're showing us that he still has this sense of duty. Like
Mm-hmm.
Kratos is coming, we're going to war. Like, all right, let's fucking get popping. And another thought I have with him is that he reminded me of like an evil B Toms.
Because of the his verbiage choice,
Yeah,
like how
just
he
like the way,
talks and
yeah, just like everything. He was just like, oh, like you want a cup of
yeah.
like cup of tea, like I don't know, just everything about him just was like an evil B Toms. It was almost too like a less evil Morty,
A less
like
evil. Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
just like very charismatic. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot.
I like love how you phrased that. How the switch got turned when Hades realized that this is getting real. Like if we're talking about Titans, he doesn't care about like this petty bullshit anymore. He's like, all right, give me the bolt. We gotta like we know he says that, and that's epic. Like I really hope it like plays out like that every time we see Hades, that he does have that more centered perspective of okay, like I don't care about the demigod bullshit. Like this is heaven and earth like fighting. Like I like that all that stuff. The one thing he does mention that I don't know how I feel about, though, when he's talking about the families, his family, like the other Greek gods, and saying, yeah, like I don't go up there. I don't do jealous. Like I don't like all their family inner politics. I hate that stuff. Are you okay with that being the reasoning that he stays down in the underworld and it not being like his in most Greek mythology, he's like he has no choice. Like he can't leave the underworld. That's his like he was assigned that duty after Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades took out the Titans, and they had to decide one's gonna be the ruler of the sea, one's going to be ruler of the skies, one's going to be the ruler of the underworld, and we can never break that. A lot of times, like Hades can only temporarily leave the underworld and he has to go back. It seems like he's choosing to stay there because he doesn't like the petty bullshit between the other gods. More similar to like Hephaestus, I guess, like the new age way.
That's an interesting question for me, only because I was going into this with the understanding that he himself this kind of petty small grudge because he got stuck with the underworld.
Okay, maybe it's just a me thing then, because, and I could be a misconception. I thought there was something greater than just his whims that kept him in the underworld, and maybe it's just a Percy Jackson thing too. He could be either way, you know. So
Yeah, because I'm thinking too, there's something with Persephone as well, where she can only
he
travel up.
tricked he tricked her into eating a fruit of the underworld, and when that happens, you have to eat that fruit like every certain amount of time. So she has to live in the underworld. That's the typical representation, but she wasn't even here.
Yeah, those
So
are
I don't
her
know what.
pearls, right? Or no?
Again, that could just be a movie thing. I don't know because they never call them Persephone's
Fair.
pearls, and I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, but either way, so this scene wraps up where Percy and Hades now have this agreement. Essentially, Percy surprises Hades in the sense that he's like pretty much not gives up his mom, but is willing to delay rescuing his mom. So him and Grover head back to the real world, which ends up being Santa Monica Beach. They are met. Annabeth is there as well, and the goat, the legend, our boy Edge, aka Ares, arrives, sword on his shoulder slash back. Two nice face shots of Percy and Ares and Fiend. So this just was a perfect
Riptide
set.
comes out.
Yeah, true. The sheathing of the sword was the unsheathing of the sword was very
Hmm.
good, and this just sets us up perfectly for the finale. It's
It's
just kind
just
of where I wanted
it.
this episode to end. So
I can't wait until we see their conversation directly, like in the beginning of episode 8, because I know that Percy should be on site with Ares now, but why is Ares on site with them? Does he already know that they know and escape the underworld? That's just the weird. They'll need to flesh that out, like while why he's ready to just whip a sword out and just attack them. It's obvious from the good guys' side of why we're trying to fight here, but either way, just the on-site aspect of it, they don't have to spend any words. They just look at each other like we're about to fucking fight. And Percy, this is probably going to be the best fight of the season. And it's funny because we haven't seen too much choreography from Walker, except honestly against like the Minotaur and a little bit in against the Chimera. But besides that, he hasn't been using the sword. So I'm excited to see how Walker handles actual like blade to blade combat with a non-monster. So that's gonna be really fun to see. But yeah, this is I say like I'm hyped, man. This is gonna be fucking awesome. The finale is gonna have to carry a lot of weight, of course. Like we're gonna have to deal with Zeus. We're gonna have to get some revelations, maybe even set up season 2, deal with Ares. There's a lot that's gonna happen in this finale that, and I think the runtime already came out. It's another like 45 minutes, so it's a little bit longer. But all in all, I'm happy right now and I'm ready to freaking watch it.
yeah, a very quick question that Meryl brought up in the Discord is, and I didn't even notice this, is that Percy doesn't have the backpack when he's on the beach.
Does Grover? Was it obvious that Grover didn't? I don't
I
know.
don't know, to be honest. He didn't leave it in the underworld, or at least he
Hmm.
shouldn't have. But he literally has it on his back when he uses the pearl. So potential production oversight. I have no idea because I didn't notice. This is just something that I read from Meryl. She with the eagle eye. So I guess something to look at for
I
next episode
wouldn't
if
read
that
into
plays a
that.
role. Okay, so that wraps up episode 7. We almost find out the truth, or we find out the truth almost. One of those. It almost is at the end. So there you go. Episode
Sort
7.
of. It's we find out the
Sort of.
truth, sort of.
Okay. So neither of those. We will be back for the finale. We'll get the episode title right when it comes out. Episode 8. Yeah, I'd crazy that we're done
I
pretty
know.
much after this, but been an up and down ride. We're on an up right here. We're on the upswing. So hopefully, like we've said a couple times, the finale gets us where we want to be and ends this season on a high note. If you like what you heard and want to support us, the best way is just going to be subscribing, whatever you are listening or watching on. If you want to engage in a conversation, YouTube comments are an option. If you're more of a podcast listener, then the Discord. We mentioned it a couple times here. We chat in the Discord almost as often as we can. We're also trying to get better at it, so it's easier to get better at it when there's more people involved. So if you want to have conversations with us, if you want to talk theories, if you want to just give your opinion, all that kind of stuff, we'd be happy to have you in the Discord. And yeah, I listed off a bunch of the other shows we're covering at the top of this, so you've heard it already. I won't repeat it, but I will repeat that we are Bingetown TV, and thank you for listening.